I'm a man. I'm 42 and I'm not scared of a dang thing. Except taxes. Hate taxes. Furbies. Those things are just plain weird. And then there is that fear of attaching the wrong picture in a text message. Oh, and lastly, how about tearing up a public restroom just to find out there's no toilet paper? Terrified of that happening. But when it comes to fantasy football, these are 4 players I'm terrified to draft in 2024. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Hopefully everyone's doing well out there today. We're talking about 4 studs that I am terrified to draft in 2024. Something I'm not terrified of this year, though, is challenging you to a best ball league on Underdog Fantasy. I literally want to challenge you to a league right now. There are live links to drafts down below in the description of this video. Now, maybe you don't already have an Underdog Fantasy account. Don't worry, it's not too late. Head over to Underdog Fantasy or download the app. Create a new account using the referral code Headliners. Then once you make your minimum $10 deposit, some things are going to happen. You're going to get a special pick added to your account. You're also going to get a first-time deposit offer of up to $250 in bonus cash. But that is not all. You're also going to get a free 2024 fantasy football draft guide from yours truly. It has dynasty content, redraft content. There's already content up there right now, and we're going to continue to add and update it all the way up until week 1 of the NFL season. But that's also going to give you a few dollars in your account to come join some of these leagues with me. Leagues are only $3 to join, and like I said, everything is down below in the description, and I'll probably pin a comment about it as well. But let's also set a like goal on this video so I can give away another draft guide. If this video right here can get over 750 likes, I will pick a random commenter from down below in the comment section to give a free draft guide to. So let's hit the like button, leave those comments down below, and let's dive into a few studs that I am terrified to draft in 2024. And the first one's going to be Joe Burrow, quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals, and this one right here I absolutely hate because I am a Joe Shiesty fan. I have probably spent more of my own money on Joe Burrow memorabilia than any other player out there, but I am terrified to draft him here this year. It has nothing to do with talent. I think we know that. It has nothing to do with the offense or the weapons that he has. It has everything to do with health. Over the last 4 years, the injuries have started to rack up a little bit. We got rib fractures, torn ACL, MCL, PCL, a torn meniscus, finger dislocation, a knee strain, an MCL sprain, a calf strain, and recently, the ligament tear in his right wrist. Now, there is no doubt about it. A fully healthy Joe Burrow that plays a full season is going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback, but in reality, he's only been a top 5 fantasy quarterback one time over his 4 years in the NFL. Now, he was also the quarterback 8 back in 2021, so that is no slouch of a year by any means. But it's because of those couple of successful years that his price continues to stay high in 2024. He is currently the quarterback 7 overall in projected ADP. Now, on average, the quarterback 7 scores 313.1 fantasy points, and with the injuries that have racked up, we know Burrow isn't going to be out there running all over the place. He's going to have to use his arm for the majority of his fantasy points. He's already had 40 or less rush attempts in 3 of his 4 seasons in the NFL. Not going to be a guy that runs a lot. So what does that mean he's going to need to do with his arm in order to hit that quarterback 7 price tag? Well, he's going to need to be in the neighborhood of 4,400 yards passing, 32 passing touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. But he's also going to need 100 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground as well to have enough fantasy points to hit that quarterback 7 number. And when you see that stat line, that's going to be very hard for him to achieve if he misses any games throughout the season. For his career, he's averaging 270.8 passing yards per game. So in order to hit 4,400 passing yards, he needs to play in 16.2 games this season. Basically, a full season. How about for his career, he has a touchdown percentage of 5.1%, which means in order for him to get 32 passing touchdowns, he would need to throw the ball around 630 times. His career high was in 2022, where he threw 606 passes that year. How about interceptions? Any year he's played in at least 16 games or more, he hasn't had any less than 12 interceptions in that season. The stat line we gave him only had 10 interceptions. If he's throwing more interceptions, he's going to need more yardage or more touchdowns to make up for it. Can you see why I'm starting to be a little bit worried here? Dude is coming off a pretty serious injury as well. There are some people out there saying that Joe Burrow may never be 100% again. And now we need him to go out there and throw for 4,400 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions through the air. No more Joe Mixon. Can Zach Moss and Chase Brown eat up a ton of touches to take off some of the pressure? I really hope not, because remember, we need him to throw the ball like 630 times. He's also going to have a new offensive coordinator. Brian Callahan is gone. He's now the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. There's no more Tyler Boyd, but the addition of rookie Jermaine Burton doesn't really worry me about the loss of Boyd too much. If you spend a 5th round pick on Joe Burrow and he plays all 17 games, you hit the jackpot. If you spend a 5th round pick on a quarterback that can't stay healthy, it is really going to hurt your fantasy football team. If you draft Joe Burrow in 2024, you better be sure to get yourself some solid insurance in the double-digit rounds late in your drafts. But what about Aaron Jones as well? I'm terrified this year. A bad 2023 is going to make a lot of people forget how good Aaron Jones actually is when he's on the field. Since 2019, Aaron Jones has averaged 14 fantasy points per game in half PPR scoring. But what would you say if I told you that over the last 5 seasons, Aaron Jones' fantasy points per game have gone down every single year? In 2019 is 18.1. In 2020, 16.8. 2021 went down to 13.5. 2022, 12.9. And then last year, 10.9. How about his yards per touch? The dude was always super efficient. He just had the lowest yards per touch since his rookie year in 2017. And only 2 times in 7 years has he played a full season. Now, it will be during this year that he turns the dreaded 30 years old. But he's no longer in Green Bay. He's now in Minnesota. And if I had to guess, he really wants to stick it to the Packers for giving up on him. But can the new quarterbacks in Minnesota move the ball down the field consistently enough through the air to unclog the boxes for Aaron Jones? That is a big question we have right now. Now, luckily, we're getting Aaron Jones at a quote-unquote cheaper price this year because he's currently sitting at running back 17. Now, on average, the running back 17 scores 186.7 fantasy points per season. That's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,200 total yards and 8 total touchdowns, right around 40 receptions or so. Aaron Jones has a career average of 5.5 yards per touch. So in order to hit 1,200 yards, he's going to need right around 218 touches this season. His career average is right at 14.9 touches per game, which means he needs to play in 15 games this season to have a shot at that number. But he's only played in 15 games 2 times over his 7-year career. It is a good sign that there are 210 vacated touches in this offense from the departure of Alexander Mattison alone. But I have to think that Ty Chandler sees a slight bump in volume as well in this backfield. Here is what definitely scares me, though. People are adding back in that name value of Aaron Jones. Just because you add a name like Aaron Jones to your team in the 5th round doesn't mean you are set or safe at the running back position. If Aaron Jones is on my team, I prefer him to be my running back 3. If he's my running back 2, you better believe I'm adding extra running back depth later in my draft. Which will then bring me to Deebo Samuel, terrified to draft him as well. This has a lot more to do, though, with San Francisco just having so many high-end options that they all can't be utilized consistently. Now, Deebo, he still finished as the wide receiver 12 overall in 2023, and he averaged 14.2 fantasy points per game, which is great. But Deebo had over 30% of his season-long scoring racked up in just 2 games last season. He literally had a total of 213.7 fantasy points on the year, but 64.3 of them came in just week 13 and week 14 alone. He had 5 top 10 finishes. He also had 6 finishes outside the top 30 at the position. We already know he isn't the most durable guy. He's never played a full season in his career. His rush attempts, which really carried him to that big 2021 season, have decreased every year since then. He doesn't get enough deep looks down the field for those big plays. He ranks as wide receiver 82 in deep targets just last season. He just relies heavily on yards after the catch, which is great because that's something he is definitely good at, but it's also the reason he gets banged up so often. Now, he's still projected to go as the wide receiver 15 in the 3rd round. The wide receiver 15 on average scores right around 193 fantasy points a year. That's like a total of 1,100 yards and 8 total touchdowns with right around 70 catches. Those are numbers for sure that Deebo can hit. I mean, he has scored more than 193 fantasy points in 2 of the last 3 seasons alone. But I'm terrified to draft a player so early that is so boom or bust every single week. I don't expect a huge game every single week from all of my players. I know there's going to be down weeks, but to finish outside the top 30 at the position more times than he finishes inside the top 10 and having to draft him that early is super hard to accept. He'll score the points and it's going to be great for like 5 or 6 weeks a year, but every week you throw him into your lineup, you're going to be terrified that he puts up single digits, just like he did 6 times last year alone. Which then will leave me our last guy in the show, the 4th guy today. It's Mark Andrews, tight end for the Baltimore Ravens, and I really like to compare Mark Andrews to Deebo Samuel. He is the Deebo of the tight end position. 1 big year, and we've been overpaying ever since. He's only had over 855 yards receiving 1 time in 6 seasons. He only has had over 75 catches 1 time in 6 years, and only 1 season with double-digit touchdowns. His production each and every week is super boom or bust. Now, when you look at his receiving yards, they've decreased now in 3 straight years. He's having a hard time staying healthy and staying on the field. He will go weeks on the injury report. More times than not, he's probably going to have a questionable tag next to his name. You're not even going to know if he's going to play that week or not until kickoff. But fantasy football players continue to draft him highly because the tight end position has just been an absolute wasteland. But is the tight end position a wasteland still in fantasy football? With the addition of guys like Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride, Jake Ferguson. How about the reemergence of guys like Evan Ingram and David Njoku? Then we have the new rookie in Brock Bowers. It's nowhere near as bad at this position as it used to be, but Andrews is still sitting at tight end 4 overall. On average, the tight end 4 scores 162.7 fantasy points a season. That's going to be right around 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 60 receptions. Aside from what we saw from Mark Andrews in 2021, that is no easy stat line for him to hit. Especially when you take into consideration Isaiah Likely, another tight end on this roster, is no slouch behind him on the depth chart. We also know that Zay Flowers, he showed some promise last year in his rookie season. They just went out and drafted another wide receiver in Devontae Walker, and now we have Derrick Henry in the backfield to soak up a ton of touches. And then if that is not enough for you, there are a lot of people out there talking about the potential year that we could see from Rashad Bateman, saying that this is going to be the year he finally puts it together. Now, that remains to be seen, but he is another option in that offense. Andrews isn't the only show in town in Baltimore like he was a couple years ago, and he's still damn expensive on draft day. Personally, I would rather draft Dalton Kincaid, who's ranked behind Mark Andrews and is being drafted after him in fantasy in 2024. Now, I don't know about you, but some of the things that I just went through today absolutely terrify me to draft any of these guys for my fantasy football team. Remember, it's very important to find out where these players are being drafted and then actually kind of figure out what do they need to achieve in order to return that draft value. If it's not likely that they're going to hit those numbers, don't pay that high price tag. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for the day. If you enjoyed today's show, do me a favor, hit the like button if you haven't already, and consider subscribing and joining Headliner Nation. We got you covered with all things fantasy here each and every year until I'm too old to do this. But I'm going to get out of here for the day. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day, and most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.
Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.